Where are we? I think, no, I don't know. Sorry, hold on one second. I got to open this up for some reason. It's not, okay, Zoom. Here we go. Okay, so today's topic is top contact center trends and expectations in 2022 and beyond. This is actually Fireside Chat 90. We are getting close to 100 at this point. So very excited about that. So let me share a couple of things here. Quick polling question. And the polling question, whoops, sorry. The polling question for today is pretty straightforward. What is your reaction to the statement? In fact, I'll just share this. CX has now exceeded price and product as the main driver for doing business with that company. Scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. What's your opinion? And I'll give it a few more seconds here.
There's no, Steve, there's no depends.
No, there is no depends. Exactly. So, yeah, let me just finish the poll here. Thanks, everybody. The answers are very interesting. You'll see this in a moment. And here, I'm going to share the results. And the results are number 4 and number 3 have won, followed by number 2, and then 1 and 5 are interesting. So this is actually a very, very famous quote from a group called the Walker Consultancy. They made a statement back in 2013 that customer experience would now exceed price and product as the main driver for doing business with that organization, company, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and that word customer experience can also be translated to member experience, patient experience, and other keywords, employee experience, et cetera. So believe it or not, a few years later, Gartner also confirmed the same thing through some statements that they had made. This is actually, if you want to do contact center, you've got to have the statement in your arsenal. Okay, this is a key component. Whenever I meet with an executive in any group that's talking about contact center, that particular phrase I use all the time, where I just say the word like patient experience or customer experience. They are all over it. Everybody from the COO to the CMO to the CFO to the chairman, chairwoman, anybody. It's a big deal. Okay, so just keep that in your arsenal there. It's the number 2, a little bit simpler. How critical is uptime in a CAS contact center to you? 1 to 5. And Blair, I can get you copies of these results if you'd like at some point.
Yep, that's always useful.
Yeah. Okay, let me close it out. Thanks, everybody. Let me just, again, take a quick snapshot here. And let me share the results. And most of you have said it's a 5 out of 5. A few said 4, followed by 3, and then 1. So interestingly, again, opinion here, and I'm sure Blair will provide us insights. Most of the contact centers, because they're cloud, are not at a 5 nines model. We have a contact center that got hit with that that outage from Amazon back when it was December, November. It also affected another client where we couldn't even get access to a portal where the vendor was actually doing programming 3 days before a live cutover. So it affected a lot of consumer-based stuff too. But interestingly, I think this is going to become a very big deal going forward as as we continue this journey with customer experience. In fact, I had a vendor recently quote the fact that if you don't have a 5 nines model, you're not going to be able to engage larger enterprises for CCaaS. So interesting statement. Okay, let me keep going. Thanks everybody for that. So recap, many thanks to Norman Rice and Jack Lyon from Extreme Networks last week. I was very impressed. This was not about selling anything. It was about what they have experienced during the chip shortage and how they basically responded to it. And interestingly, how pricing is going to be going up and how lead times are going to go out. And they gave us some interesting insights, to capitalize on our consultancies. So thanks so much for that, Extreme. I was normally going to do famous quotes, but I came up with another little model instead. We're going to be continuing with some famous quotes, but I've also got something else, and I'll explain that in a second. Aha moments, of course, and then please mute and chat in window as usual. So I had a personal experience in the last week. It was strictly retail. It was not contact center. But I've come up with a little phrase called CX winners and losers, and I'll share that with you in a second. But the idea is I'm going to start like a little bit of a column here because I'm going to run out of famous quotes shortly. And for anybody who has an experience, whether it be retail or it's better yet in a contact center, of a winner and a loser, please send me an email. Love to read it. Maybe we can post it to one of these fireside chats. Okay. So last week I had two experiences. One with eBay, one with PetSmart. So the winner was eBay. I had purchased a used car part for my 13-year-old, Gary, you would love this, Acura RL, because the new part was like $1,000. It didn't work, actually. Another part worked instead that I paid $140 for that was actually valued at $4,000 new. So there is a market for used car parts. I ordered the return. I was allowed to return the item. Not everything is always returnable, but this one was. They came up with a QR code, and I went to the post office. The post office manager really didn't know what to do with the QR code, but she scanned it, and all of a sudden, this receipt comes out for Steve, 0 on the return with all the details, and it came up with a packing slip and literally placed it on the outside of a little envelope, and then the item was shipped, and 2 days later, I had a $250 refund in my Amex card. And it was probably the easiest way that I've ever seen for shipping purposes or with delivery, a possible return. So,
Steve, can I add something?
Yeah,
If
sure.
anyone, so similar thing with Amazon, you don't have to go to the post office. You can go to a Whole Foods nearby. And it's like even simpler than that.
Or
You just go.
Amazon will take, you can go to Kohl's too.
Kohl's, yeah. And you notice they're in the back of the store, right, Blair?
Yeah, and you get a 30% discount coupon from Kohl's if you return anything.
Oh, interesting. No, I haven't done Kohl's, but at Whole Foods, you just walk up and they scan it and it's like, okay, you're done. You don't
Yeah.
have to box it. You don't have to do anything.
So then the loser this week, thanks, Blair.
By the way, if you sneeze, you get a 30% discount from Kohl's.
That's true. But you know what? I used to work for Ticketron years ago. That was the predecessor of Ticketmaster. And all these Ticketron machines were in the 4th floor of a Macy's, way up in the end, where you had to go through the entire store. So it was a way of upselling and getting you into the store. That was obviously that's what they're looking to do with Amazon too. But I find it interesting because Amazon really is a competitor to Kohl's, you know, and to Whole Foods for that. Well, not Whole Foods. No,
No, they own it.
Yeah, they're owned by them. Right. So PetSmart. So I bought a couple of items. It wasn't that big, but I asked them for a shopping bag, you know, paper bag. In New York, it's not paper. It's no longer plastic. They told us plastic was illegal. They told us they don't carry paper at all. They didn't even have like these PetSmart, you know, reusable shopping bags. And basically the individual told me that they're no longer even providing bags. And I'm going, well, then where's the PetSmart bag? Or where's this or that? So just unbelievable. And then I had to wait almost 10 minutes for the cashier while the manager was looking for something back, and the cashier decided not to check out anybody, was waiting for the manager, and it was the wrong price on the item. So not a very pleasant experience with PetSmart. So again, if anybody has any kinds of stories like that, you know, over the next couple of weeks or few weeks, you know, feel free to just send me a quick email and I'd love to post it for you. Okay. So next week we have the extinction of POTS and what to do about it, part 2. We're going to have Denise back and Chris Burgee. We've actually had a client a lot of POTS in a since this fireside chat, and very important to them. They're testing it right now, and a competitor's product to Chris, they hate it. So, but I've heard that Chris is much better. So anyway, so this week we have Blair on, and she's going to be talking about those top contact center trends. And Marcia, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so it's my infomercial. I get 60 seconds to kind of tell you about Twilio, right? So what I wanted to do, and you can go to the next slide, is I
Sure.
wanted to spend my time telling you how you can learn more about Twilio and what it means to you as your business, right? So this is what businesses struggle with, keeping up with all the different channels that they have to now integrate into their businesses, providing a seamless experience, changing fast enough for the customer's expectations, and keeping up with global recommendations and regulations. So these are opportunities for you, and also where Twilio can definitely make a difference in your customer's experience. So this is where we soar. We are a CPaaS, a platform, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, that we want to partner with you and bring you the solutions that your customers need. So you can go to the next slide.
Sure.
And here's some ways you can connect. So we are doing a breakfast at Enterprise Connect, and we're going to be doing some product announcements and some things that are NDA within to the consultant and analyst teams. So please join us. The invitations will be going out today. So you should get one. If you don't get one, please let me know, but you should be getting them. And hopefully I'll see people face to face at Enterprise Connect, and our executive team will be there too. So the next slide, please.
Yeah, so just let me insert something, because I spoke to Eric yesterday, and he's saying that the attendance in the last 2 weeks has gone up considerably. So yeah,
we don't know that.
Yeah, he didn't quite say that it's what it has typically been pre-COVID, but I think that this whole idea of now, at least in New York, we don't have to wear masks anymore indoors and outdoors for that matter. So I think, and New York being a very conservative state, we're finding that the world is starting to open up now. So people are, and companies are now starting to release the idea of traveling again, et cetera. So, okay, sorry about that. Go ahead.
And it'll be interesting to see what the regulations will be at Enterprise Connect, but I'm excited about it. So, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is we're doing a webinar with the Sctc, the VAC webinar, and we're scheduled for the 15th at 2 p.m. So I have one of our product engineers speaking. So again, if you want to learn more about CPaaS, about CDP that we're a front runner on, our Flex and our segment products that are being integrated into our platform. Don't miss it. So the next slide, I think it might be the last, hopefully, because I'm probably running out of time. So I just wanted to kind of tell you a few things that, I'm new to Twilio, and it's like, I've like kind of distilled down, it's a great company, and why do you care? Is probably what it comes down to. So the few things I wanted you to walk away with today is that it is a build and buy. I know that people are always talking about, do you want to build or do you want to buy? With the platform, you can just have the platform and you can build it yourself. We have partners building on top of it so that you can buy package solutions. And then you can do an iteration of both. So it's a build and buy. And I just wanted to mention that. We are bringing the personalized data into the product with our segment product. You'll see more and more of the CDP. And I think that's going to be a big differentiator and something that's going to be important in the future. We're rapidly growing. I think people probably know that, but in the interim from COVID to post-COVID now, hopefully this is post-COVID, the company's doubled in size. So that's pretty exciting, and revenue too. So it's a very exciting place to be. And they're invested in the consultant and the analyst communities. So we'll see more and more. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm here whenever you want to reach out and get more information, just let me know.
So is that, by the way, an emoji for you skating for consultants or something like that? I couldn't quite figure
We
that
had to do, these are like our CX heroes, the heroes that we had to create for.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so, yeah, it's like, yeah, you don't think it looks like me?
No, I'm teasing.
No, I guess it doesn't.
Well, it's got some blonde hair in there, so I don't know. It just doesn't look as yours, Marcia. Anyway.
I think you're a lot better looking than that.
Yeah, I think.
I'm paying you off. Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, Twilio was one of the pioneers out there, in CPaaS, and they actually did a demo during one of the larger sessions at Enterprise Connect, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. And they came up with a whole menu of, what do you want, fish or meat or chicken? And everybody responded. They got like 1,200 responses within seconds. So it was quite interesting to see that. Dave Clardy, are you on? Yes, you are, right?
I am. I'm
Okay.
pulling double duty today.
All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Just want to give a big welcome to all the new VAC members who have joined the Fireside Chat today, as well as any new consultant members. You should have received an email from me regarding Enterprise Connect 2022. And we just want to get in touch with everyone to make sure that if you're doing a consultant event, as you heard Marcia talk about her event, please let us know. It's just a courtesy way of us not stepping on each other's toes, and then also being respectful of the consultants and analysts' time at the event. Also, if you have a $50 gift card or giveaway, please get in touch with my good friend Barb and drop it off at the booth at Enterprise Connect. And just want to say thanks for all your support, and looking forward to seeing everyone at Enterprise Connect. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Dave. And one more, Denise, our president. A word.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a great week. I just have a couple of things. One, if you are going to Enterprise Connect, please let me know, because we'd love to connect with you and have a conversation, maybe have a drink, get together. It's always a great time to see those that are typically on the other side of the screen in person. And that goes for consultant members, VAC members, any guests that are on this Fireside Chat. I'll put my email address in the chat. And if you want to shoot me an email, great. We have 9 consultant and analyst speakers being featured this year at Enterprise Connect, as well as many of our valued VAC members. So, look to them and come by our booth. I don't know if we have the booth number assigned yet, but we will get that out to everyone. And then lastly, thank you for all the interest and conversation about the POTS decommissioning or death or extinction or whatever Steve says it is today. If you have other stories that you have come across with your clients, I would love to hear them. And we're looking forward to presenting it next week. This has been a really hot topic, and I just love all the interaction. So thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, Denise. I appreciate that. Okay.
Hey,
And so
Steve,
now,
Steve, our booth number is 101. We have our booth number 101.
101. How do we
Yeah.
get, that's such a great number. How do we do that?
I don't know, but that's our booth number 101.
Well, thank you, Barb, for that. So without further ado, let me share the slides, and let's share with Blair. So Blair, you're up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think all of you, or many of you, know me. I'm an independent analyst. I'm part of BC Strategies, and I've been following UC and contact center for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
So Steve had asked me to talk about some of the key trends. So here are some of the things I'll be talking about. I'm not really going to get into cloud unless anyone has any questions about that. I think everyone's pretty up to speed on what's going on there. But if you do have questions about my opinions on anything, we can certainly talk about that. Next slide, Steve.
Sure. And by the way, Blair, if we are going a little bit over, we can always, do a follow-up if you'd like. Okay. So
yeah, I just need to check my calendar for.
Yeah. Understood. Sure. Thank you.
Sure. So this is similar from last year. Just wanted to start off with the obvious about work from home, or what people are now calling work from anywhere. And it really hasn't changed. I still think that about 25 to 35% of agents are going to continue working from home, or some sort of hybrid model where they're in the office part of the time, or in the call center part of the time and at home part of the time. So I think, like with everything else, hybrid is going to rule. But when it comes to the contact center, I think the work from home agents are predominantly going to be handling digital interactions rather than voice calls. With digital, you don't have to worry about the background noise or the bandwidth issues. So it's working from home it makes a lot more sense for handling, email, chat, social, and some of those channels rather than voice, because with voice you get into some of the security issues. I know some of you met with Brett Shockley at the Avaya Engage event, and he had some fascinating stuff about how, you know, certain agents, they'll log on, but then they'll leave and their cousin's cousin will come and take the calls, and you don't know who's really doing it. I thought that was just fascinating. So that's still going to be a big issue with work from home, but I think that's going to be the predominant method model for a while going forward, is that hybrid model. Next. So of course, we all know about CX, you know, Steve brought that up at the beginning. What I thought was really interesting is that it's outside of our industry too. You know, everyone understands it. I was on a bike ride recently, and I was wearing one of the jerseys that one of the vendors gave me, and it said something about CX on the back. And one of the riders behind me, who, you know, he's been retired. He was, I think, a building or something, you know, nothing to do with our industry or anything. And he said, "Oh, CX, is that customer experience?" I was like, "John, how did you know that?" So,
It's a big word. It is, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that everybody knows what CX is, I thought was really interesting, and it's really crossed into the mainstream. And, you know, it's all about that personalization, empathy, channel choice, and all these things that we'll be talking about a little bit more. Next slide.
Okay.
So I think what's not more important, but what we're really seeing now is going beyond CX to the employee experience, or in contact centers case, the agent experience. You know, we've been talking about you can't have a good customer experience without a good employee experience or agent experience. And, you know, we've all been saying, you know, happy agents make for happy customers. So I've really been talking about agent experience a lot because I think it's just so important, and contact centers are really starting to pay more attention to it now. So some of the things I talk about are agent empowerment and engagement and empathy. And we've been talking a lot in the last 18 months about agents showing empathy for customers, but it's also important for customers and organizations to show empathy for the agent. You know, it's not an easy job. So one thing I'm also seeing is the need for new metrics, you know, especially with AI and self-service handling the repetitive, mundane questions and interactions. So agents are getting the more complex and more intriguing types of calls that require, you know, empathy and real personalization. So what's happening is that the calls that are going to the agents are taking longer. And the goal now is really about solving the customer's problem and making the customer feel good, rather than just, you know, getting them off the phone as quickly as possible, which used to be the case. So metrics like average handling time, I think don't really cut it anymore. And instead, we should be looking at metrics that focus on customer satisfaction. You know, things like NPS and other things are becoming more important. Also related to that agent experience, I'm seeing a big increase in the use of workforce optimization and workforce engagement management tools. And these are really helpful for, you know, especially helping with flexible work schedules and helping with digital channels, and giving agents the tools to help them feel more empowered to do what's right. You know, especially with work at home, it might be, you know, I need to, you know, take a kid to, you know, a doctor's appointment or whatever. So really giving agents that flexibility is becoming more important. And companies are looking for more ways that technology can really help the agent or eliminate boring tasks. And of course, this is where AI shines, and I'll be talking about that a little bit more. We're also seeing some new training and onboarding tools for agents, again, because agent experience is so important. So Genesis introduced CX Beyond, TalkDesk introduced TalkDesk Academy. So we're seeing contact centers investing a lot more in agent training, which is really important, but also more challenging when agents are remote. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, so let me just pause right here for a second. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that too. And in fact, it's bizarre how this whole notion of, you know, on hold for even a minute is almost non-existent in terms of acceptability any longer, you know, on the customer end, you know. And we're also hearing, very interestingly, this word, hey, I want to be like Amazon now.
Exactly. And in fact, I just did a white paper for company on small contact centers. And one thing I said is that small contact centers aren't just being or companies aren't just being compared to other similar
Mhm.
brands. They're being compared to, the experience they get from Amazon, the experience they get from Uber. So that's something that's really happening. It's not just being compared to your competitors, but it's being compared to, what's the best CX experience that you're getting.
Exactly right. Thanks, Blair.
So the Great Resignation, it's real and it's having a big impact on contact centers. And that's another reason agent experience is so important. And it's really, key to pay attention to agent morale and look for ways to find and keep agents happy. 82.3 contact centers reported higher agent attrition in 2021. I forget what study this is from, sorry, but and 64% said that recruiting is getting much harder. And I talked about hybrid work earlier, and a lot of employees are leaving companies that don't provide a hybrid working solution. And it's really become an expectation to be able to work flexibly or at least part-time from home. And a lot of employers right now are basically, employees are basically saying, I've had it.
You have time to talk now, or you want to
I'm
call me?
sorry. Go ahead. I got it.
Yeah. So again, this is why training and onboarding and things like that are just so important. And a lot of cases, companies are going to have to increase the salaries that they're paying for agents just to meet the right staffing levels. Okay, next slide.
Yeah. So no, I had a question for you. So, on these salaries, or not just the salaries, but just this huge attrition factor. So obviously part of it's the Great Resignation, but is there a work from home? I had done some homework a while back, and it seems as though there's less attrition for at-home workers. I don't know if you saw that at all, Blair, or do you think that's part of this?
Yeah. And it's interesting. When I was at the Avaya event last month or the month before, I was talking to some of the government consultants that Avaya brought in, and they were saying that it was really hard for their government clients who had contact centers because a lot of them weren't allowed, legally, security-wise, to let agents work from home. So they found that it was really hard for them to compete and to find agents because the agents were going to places where they were allowed to work from home and be more flexible. And these government organizations, because of security, weren't able to do that. So that was a big problem for them. And so, yeah, that's going to be an issue that's going to keep happening.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, I thought
it's
that was
really interesting, Blair, because that same problem is happening in the public safety space, because it's difficult to let a 911 call taker work from home because of other legal things. They have access to the National Criminal Information databases, and there's just a lot of security issues, and they are dramatically down by 20, 30, 40, 50% in many centers, which is causing a huge problem for them.
Yeah, they're going to have to find, other perks and, other ways of improving that employee experience, because, that ability to work from home is just, for a lot of people, it's key. For some people, they don't want to, they've got small apartments or they have roommates or whatever, but for some people, they really do want that ability.
I'm going to build the code of silence and market that.
Well, and it's interesting. I was just on Indeed.com for a client of mine who had just passed on a job that he had, or he exited. Anyway, the bottom line was that they're now on Indeed. They're showing whether the job is flexible hybrid or whether it's full-time remote or full-time on site. So they've created a new category within their domain. So I found that interesting. Yeah. Okay, here we go, Blair.
Okay, my favorite topic. I think you've all heard me talking about, the integration of UC and contact center. I just wrote an article about it for No Jitter. I'll be doing a session at Enterprise Connect about this. I've been talking about this since the late 90s, believe it or not, back before UC was UC and before the cloud. But what's cool now is that the vendors get it, and clients are starting to get it. I know I've spoken to some of you asking, if this has been showing up in RFPs, customers who want that integrated solution for UC and contact center. So it really is happening, and I love the fact that 8x8 came up with, their XCAS term. And I've been talking to, lots of vendors who are like, so what's a good term for this? It's like, trust me, I've been thinking about this for 20 years and I haven't been able to come up with anything. But the issue is that, a lot of the vendors, that they know that this is important and they're pushing it, but they're still having a hard time really identifying, what's the real value, what's the real benefit, aside from just having a single provider and a single throat to choke. I'm starting to see some creative thinking. I think one thing we're going to start seeing is more collaboration tools like team spaces, videos, screen sharing, document sharing, things like that, to let agents and customers and these subject matter experts from other parts of the organization really come together into what I call the collaborative contact center. And as I wrote in this No Jitter article, I said pretty much every UCaaS vendor either has their own CCaaS offering or a tight integration with a CCaaS vendor. Like RingCentral has their relationship with Nice CX1, whereas Vonage, Dialpad, RingCentral, lots of others have their own integrated solution with their own contact center offering. I think one thing that really changed or accelerated people's thinking about this was when Zoom did try to acquire Five9.
Yeah.
And it really put it on everyone's radar. And, a lot of people said it validated the concept. So even though, a lot of people have been talking about it, Zoom's attempt with Five9 really said, that this validates what we've been doing or we've been talking about. And, even Microsoft, they finally introduced something. So they have Dynamics 365 voice channel, which they say is a full contact center offering. So it's not on the team side, it's on the CRM side, but Microsoft does have an offering now. And one thing that we saw different in this past year that I think is going to be going forward is that the CCaaS vendors now are starting to do things in this area. So TalkDesk introduced a UC offering called TalkDesk Phone, which is basically a business phone system that's built on top of their CCaaS platform. So once one vendor does something, everyone else does. So, I wouldn't be surprised if, Genesis has actually had something for a long time, but other companies like Five9, maybe even Nice CX1. I think some of these other CCaaS players are also going to start introducing some, lightweight telephony types of offerings. So that'll be interesting.
Blair, just quick note, I'm actually trying to update our web survey tools so I can go back on the distress center, virtual call center, and see how they're doing. So they've been 3 years now using UC tools and the omni-channel contact center. So it'll be really interesting to see the results because they are not agents, although they are agents, right? They're social workers and very different type of psychographics. But it'll be interesting to see what the real scientific benefits have been of using things combined together for the last 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. Keep me posted on that. I'd love to hear about it. But you brought up another really good point is that, and we've all heard the term informal contact center or informal call center. That's been around for a long, long time. But this is another area where we're really seeing, the benefit of this type of integration of UC and contact center. So letting these, teams and groups that aren't contact center agents, have the same tools and access to some of these contact center tools that, formal contact center agents have had access to, but these more informal ones haven't. And I think with this integration, we're going to be seeing more and more of that.
Yeah. And I've been on some of these consultant programs in NDA mode, Interactive, Genesis, and others. And yeah, it's a topic we always bring up, for years now, and they're finally listening. So yeah.
Yeah, Genesis, it's interesting. They were actually one of the first. They had a product a long time ago called GETS, Genesis Enterprise Telephony Service or something. So they were actually one of the first to be active in this area, but then that product kind of died and nothing ever happened with it. But it's nice to kind of see the rebirth of this concept now. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more. And I'd love to hear from you guys about what your customers are asking for and if they understand the value and if they're really looking for this type of solution.
Well, I'm sure that we can send out, if this helps you, Blair, I'm sure you can send a survey out to the entire group here and we can get you some good responses.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that later. That would be great.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so this whole, concept of integrating UC and CC, leads to this whole discussion about, best of breed or best of suite. And, a lot of the vendors, are doing this big push for single stack offerings from a single vendor, single interface, single, single everything. And companies like Vonage are also including CPaaS as part of that. It's interesting with 8x8, they've got their XCaaS offering and they do have CPaaS, but for now, XCaaS is, just UC in contact center, doesn't include CPaaS, but I'm sure that's going to happen in the future. And, as I said, Zoom, Microsoft, Salesforce, everyone's adding contact center, and, more and more we're looking at these, complete single stack solutions. But, that does bring up the question, what's going to happen to these point solutions like, Genesys and Five9. Of course, there's still going to be an important role for them with mission critical contact centers. But it's going to be interesting going forward to see what they end up doing or who they end up getting acquired by. Next
Great.
slide.
Sure
And
thing.
that brings me to the next point about acquisitions. So, of course, the vendor landscape, is changing. And what's interesting is that everyone's trying to get into the contact center space.
Yeah,
And, people realize, there's a lot more money in contact center rather than in UCaaS. UCaaS is pretty much stabilized and there's just, not as much you can do, but with CCaaS, that's where the money is. So we all know about, Ericsson acquiring Vonage, although I don't know what's going to happen. Vonage is saying that they're still going to be, able to do their own thing. And so they're still going forward with everything. And we'll hear more about that at Enterprise Connect. 8x8, we know, acquired Fuse, but that was really more for their enterprise base, I think. And now they're going to have overlapping products. But my understanding is that pretty much all the Fuse stuff is going to migrate over to 8x8. We all know about, Mitel partnering with RingCentral. And, there's going to be some issues here because for contact center, Mitel partners with Five9 and RingCentral partners with NICE CX1. So we'll have to see what happens going forward with that. NEC is partnering with Intermedia. There's just so much going on. And another thing that's happening is blurring of the lines between contact center and CRM. Salesforce and Zendesk have their own contact center offerings. And now Microsoft, as I said, they have something. But at the same time, Salesforce and ServiceNow just did a big investment in Genesys along with Zoom. They all invested in Genesys. So as I said, these lines are really blurring. I think there's going to be more investment, more partnerships, and more blurring of the lines going forward. Another area that's pretty active right now, I mentioned workforce engagement in WFO before. Those are all becoming part of this overall CCaaS suite. And we're seeing more single vendor or tight partnership relationships in this area. NICE acquired InContact years ago and kind of started that off. More recently, we saw Five9 acquire Virtual Observer. Playbox is a vendor that's been pretty active. They've got tight partnerships with UJet and a few others. So they're a company that's really working on tight integrations with contact center players. So, as always, the vendor landscape is changing, which makes it interesting for all of us.
That's an understatement.
Yes.
And it keeps us very busy.
Yep. So next slide, kind of along the same lines, we are seeing new entrants. I talked about Microsoft, Zoom, Five9 didn't happen, but they did invest in Genesys, as I mentioned. They also introduced the Zoom Video Engagement Center. And I expect there's going to be some kind of Zoom Contact Center Lite offering coming out, whether it's homegrown or based on an acquisition. We know that Zoom, wants to get into this area. So we'll just have to stay tuned to see what they do. Next. Okay, omnichannel and digital. You guys know about this. This is nothing new. So this hasn't really changed. The phone is still king. Despite all the digital channels like chat and email being used more and more, and self-service being used more and more. Voice is still king. So it's really important that as your customers start looking at well, I need to do chat, I need to do email, I need to do all these things. Don't lose sight of voice, and because that's still the number one channel that customers are looking for. But what's interesting now is the role of digital taking off. So some of the vendors are being a lot more aggressive with their digital offerings. Some created digital organizations within their companies. NICE launched a digital solutions group a couple of years ago. Genesys has a new GM and SVP of digital and AI, and they offer, their separate Genesys DX, a standalone digital offering. There were a couple acquisitions in the last year, and I think we're going to see a lot more in 2022. Genesys acquired Bold 360, Dialpad acquired Cupid. So it's going to be all about digital going forward. But again, don't let your customers lose sight of the importance of voice.
Claire, can I just raise the fact though that reason why, from my experience with the early adopters, the omni-channel, the reason their voice is still so popular is because the digital channels are being done so badly that people run out of patience, and that if the industry wants to get the money on the digital channels, they really got to help the customers do the process re-engineering and operational processes to drive and support the digital channels, because just because you have them doesn't mean you're doing it well, right?
So,
and it's just real painful. Right.
Yeah. So last year, I took out a slide I was going to use that I used last year because I didn't want to be too redundant. But some of you may remember my experience when I called into one of these large retailers, and I called and they said, for faster service, go online. And so I went online to do the web chat, and I was, I think, number 648 in queue for the web chat. And it took about 2 hours until it took about 2 hours until someone finally came online. So what I've been saying after that is, if you're going to do digital, do it right, because having that bad digital experience, people are just going to turn back to the voice experience, which you don't want. So if you don't give them that good digital experience, then you're just wasting your time and money and resources.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Roberta. You're totally right on that one. Next slide, Steve.
Sure. Yeah. And I think the SLA is also, like, I remember like 10 years ago, an email response was actually acceptable up to 72 hours. Now it's like 1 hour.
A week. Oh no. Now for email, they're saying like a week, because digital has gotten worse.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah, no, I think it used to be like, 24 hours to 36 hours. And now I'm saying, 72 and longer.
Oh my God.
Because they're just not staffing properly for it.
Yeah.
And plus with a lot of the digital channels, I always talk about, please focus on best practices. So if you have agents doing web chat, don't let them do 10, simultaneous web chat. Let them, maybe just do 5, because, we all know as we're doing the web chat and it's like, hello, are you there? Because we know that they're doing, 10 other customers at the same time. So it's really important to think about those best practices, and, maybe don't mix phone and digital, and just have dedicated agents for those so that they can really concentrate on it. But, there's just a lot of different best practices, but don't just throw it out there because, that it's important to do digital. It's just so important to do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So so I've got a bunch more slides, but I'm sure we'll have to continue another time. But we've got time for this next one, I think.
Yeah, we've got 4 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is 3 hours, because this is great stuff. But.
So this is, pretty much along the lines I've been saying. This is from the study that I do with Five9 and Zogby. We ask about channel preference, and every year it's still, phone is number one. It's across demographics, it's across age groups, it's across geographies. And one thing we ask is, for just general inquiries, what's your channel preference? And then for when something's urgent or something, maybe more sensitive or more critical, then the number of people who want to use phone goes up even more. So, for urgent issues or critical issues, people really want to pick up their phone. They don't want to, wait for an email or do a web chat or social media. So again, this is just showing the difference. So even though phone is number one for general, when something is critical, it's even more important. I was kind of surprised that email is number 2 as the next preferred option, because as we were saying, the response time can be, really long, at least 24 hours. But I think some people like it because, they can include, documents, they can include, photos and things like that. But personally, I never use email, but my daughter says that it's her preference. So I think that the key is that, each channel has a benefit, so each channel can be used for different situations. For some things, email is best. For some things, web chat might be best. For other things, text might be best. So, the idea of, meeting your customers where they are is important. But again, make sure you're going to do it right.
And I was just on a troubleshoot call for a consumer security product that I have. And yeah, I made the phone call. They answered right away. And then the rest of it has been communication on email. So I found that interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay.
So next slide. So I think video, we all expected video to be really hot and everyone's going to want to be using it. But according to the survey, most people still don't want to use video chat. They're still not ready for it. And we even asked if given the option of being able to see the agent, but not have the agent see you, would you want to do video that way? And people were still like, nah, I'm good. So, age did play a role. I think 39% of the overall survey respondents said that they don't want to use video. And that number is skewed more toward the older generation, whereas 70% of the 18 to 29-year-olds were more open to using video. And I think like 47% of the 30 to 49 and 50 to 64-year-olds were more open to it. But the older population were like, nope, no thanks. But again, it's important to think about, where does video make sense and what are the best practices? So most consumers, they don't want the agent to see them, but they do want to be able to share, this is what my damaged car looks like, or, here's my broken washing machine. Or they want to be able to get, how-to videos or, instructions on here's how you fix something. So it's really all about finding the best use cases when it comes to video.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, that's okay. No, I was done. So we probably should set up another time to, I've got like 5 more slides.
Okay, great.
Or 4.
Yeah, so let's continue the discussion. Blair, this is, I can't tell you how many notes I took and I wish I took more. Great stuff. So thanks so much for being on the call today and sharing with us your insights. There was some great chat in the window. We'll carry that into the next meeting as well. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks, Blair. And thanks for, again, doing this. Yay. And thanks everybody for joining today. I thought it was, again, the insights are tremendous. Thanks so much, Blair. And thanks everybody for attending. We'll see you next week.
Okay, thanks all.
Take care all.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, Steve.
Anytime, Barb. Thanks. Okay.